One of the things that I love about your approach to this assignment is the unrelenting focus on customer experience. You told Adam and I off air that everything you think about, you and your team and everything you do, really is based on the core principle that customer experience is essentially what your product is. It really is what you sell. Can you talk about that a little bit and how that manifests online and in digital?
Sure, absolutely. So, yeah, you said it eloquently. Everything we do is really focused around the customer experience. So, I think in its most uh, tangible or palpable way, when we think about customer experience, is probably like anybody who's taken a vacation at any one of our properties thinks about customer experience. What are the types of experience you expect with a Marriott Vacations Worldwide brand while you're on property? The way you expect to be treated, the facilities, the amenities, and we do a phenomenal job at making sure that we're meeting that expectation from the consumer perspective. When we think about it from a digital perspective, it really is focused around some core elements. First would be, how do we provide and think about seamless experiences primarily for our owners? So again, remember, owners are people that are owners within our product, our stable of products, right? So we just talked about the fact that we sell weeks. So the question becomes, we just talked about the fact that we sell points. So the question becomes, how and where can I use my points? How do we articulate the value proposition associated with currency that is points, and where it can get me regardless of necessarily where I want to go, but really more about the experience that I want to partake in. So a lot of that looks like the ability to go online, understand what those point values can be applied or leveraged against, and then allowing people to actually make decisions to book those vacations online. So again, we think about that in terms of a really self-service or seamless experience. The other things we think about is, how do we make sure that we're connecting owners with other owners who may be sharing like-minded ways of thinking about vacation experiences that they've either had in the past or planning in the future. And so we have a robust online community within our social networks where we help facilitate those conversations between our owner groups, and others where we simply sit on the sidelines and allow owners to have open and honest conversations around the products that we offer today. It's been really eye-opening in terms of understanding what our weaknesses are, but also really rewarding and understanding where we are doing a great job and where we need to double down and continue to do really a great job in servicing our customers from beginning to end.
When you decentralized, did you add all the property-specific accounts, or did the properties already have their own Facebook page, etc.? They just weren't populating that content with people who were on site.
It's almost like you've done this before. The answer is yes and yes. There were, what I love about social is it's highly approachable. And if you're curious and you are somebody who is engaged, really anybody can participate in being an advocate in social. So what we found is we went side by side, there was just organically people on those sites that were more socially curious or more socially apt than others. And so what that looked like is, on some level, we were looking at the sort of organic sprouting up of these new handles and these properties and people who really wanted to show the best foot forward of each one of these properties, and others where we may not have had as strong a bench and that sort of, I don't even want to call it expertise, but that level of curiosity. And what we found is that if you ask the question, while some people may proactively raise your hands, if you ask the question, always inevitably somebody will step up to the plate and raise their hand and say, I want to be a part of this process. And so one of the great things we did was we looked at some of the best practices that were happening before we decentralized and said, hey, out in the field, we're seeing a lot of great best practices happen around, for example, sunrise and sunset, right? It's just a classic story within the vacation space and how folks are looking at either seasonal components, but again, I go back to something like sunrise, sunset, pools, believe it or not, I mean, really stunning, sharp, beautiful images of pools. You want to talk about a unique personality that each one of our properties has. Think about running a series of content on pools, and we're talking about January, right? That looks much different in Park City, Utah than it does in Marco Island, Florida, right? But each one has its own sense of personality. And so yeah, that's a roundabout way of answering your question, which is it was both organic and from a central area where we started to make those connection points. We really look at it as a feedback mechanism. We're not necessarily participating in those conversations. We don't feel that it's appropriate for us to participate in really a space that's meant for timeshare owners to communicate with each other. We certainly work to build our own infrastructure and our own community so that we can, you use the word control the narrative. I would agree with that statement of controlling the narrative is really important, because I think there's a lot of great information out there on what I'll call non-timeshare regulated forums and groups, and there's a lot of misinformation on the same channels. So we use Tug and others to identify where some of that misinformation may live, and that helps to inform and shape a lot of our content that we put together for our blogs, the kinds of articles that we're writing, the social posts, FAQs, top 10s, things to know. I mean, really that information is so critical for us, and we're very grateful that Tug exists today just for that very reason. The flip side of that, of course, is we want to know from our customers where we're doing well and where we're not. And certainly as things get called out specifically by brand name, we want to share back those wins. And it's a great morale booster to see some of those qualitative pieces of feedback come into the organization as a whole, to hear where we're helping and serving customers. And again, like I said earlier, really a feedback mechanism. And we've got others from a digital capacity that we look to measure and track not only the performance of our digital products. Do people understand ease of use? Are they getting the functionality? But really overall customer sentiment as well. Which is something we've really focused on much more so in the last 18 months since any time I've ever been here. We're building out our BI, our business intelligence group, in a much more robust fashion. We are looking at how and what role things like customer sentiment, text analytics play, again, and not only our ability to serve and potentially shape our product in the future, but more tactically, the types of content that we're creating, and how we're looking at SEO just generally based off of these different feedback loops and channels.
Social Pros listeners, I want you to hear exactly what Ovi said right there. They're going to the big industry discussion boards and forums. They're not necessarily participating overtly, but they are listening aggressively and then taking the questions and comments that people pose in those discussion boards and forums and turning the answers into content assets. That is such a best practice. And it's something that so many brands fail to do. I talked about in my book, Hug Your Haters. Like, guys, where the people who love you the most, where do they spend time? The discussion boards and forums. 0% of people spend time in a discussion board and forum if they are mediocre about the category. 0%, right? So it's the hardcore, the people who either love you or hate you. That's where they spend time. And so many brands are still asleep at the switch when it comes to aggressive listening in forums.
You mentioned the Game of Thrones finale program that you leveraged for some great coverage. Love for you to tell our audience a little bit about what that was and how you came up with the idea and how it impacted you.
Sure. I mean, so we always look for, and I'm like any great organization, or frankly anybody who's really curious or involved with social media, for those moments that kind of transcend your core traditional space. And Game of Thrones, just like a Friends finale or Breaking Bad finale, or any show like that actually transcends the space that's outside of television and entertainment, is an opportunity we want to participate in that conversation. It's an opportunity where we want to leverage what the Western world is talking about, but also can't abandon our core values of what we are, right? Which is a vacation business, the business of vacation. So we challenge the teams to think about, what does our participation in this global conversation look like? And one of the things that the team came back with was this notion that there's all this key art that's out there when we talk about the Game of Thrones last season and the season finale. And the key art is obviously posing in front of the throne, posing with the dragons. And so our team came up with some solutions on, again, the tagline, winter is coming, was trending. Winter is coming is trending, and summer is coming is trending around this finale. And so we said, what does it look like when it comes from the vacation standpoint? And so we basically replicated a lot of the key art that you see within the season finale final, but for example, it would be instead of, and the character's name is slipping my mind, but the lead character sitting in front of the Iron Throne with a sword, it is, one of a potential guest or somebody who's staying at one of our properties sitting on a beach chair in front of the pool. And instead of a goblet of wine, right, he's got a pina colada in his hand.
Cocktail of
really,
some sort.
a cocktail of some sort, just sort of leaning in, with the summers coming, reminding people that, there's a summer out there. There's a world of vacations that are about to happen, and we're participating in this conversation. So it was one of our highest performing posts in terms of engagement, and each one of our properties, whether it was West Vacation Club, Sheridan Vacation Club, Marriott Vacation Club, had its own unique wink and nod to this. But sort of the overarching theme and idea was obviously leaning back into something that was recognizable and relevant within sort of the larger community. It was great.